Hello, junior archaeologist. About to go out for a run. But before I went out for a run, I wanted to introduce today's video. Namely, 5 things you should be showing up on your first job on. And if you're not showing up with these 5 things, you should probably get them soon. Anyway, I'm going to tie some shoes now. Alright, now let's start the video. Right, so you're new at the job. You just got your first paycheck. Or maybe you're about to start on your first job ever, like next week or something. What is the first thing you should buy? And my vote is always for a good compass. You know, certain things in archaeology might change. You might not necessarily need a clipboard anymore. You might not have to carry around a giant Trimble. You just like hook a GPS up to your phone. But a good compass is forever, I think. You never know. It's only 2020. They might come up with an electronic compass that like lasts 20,000 years on a charge, like in 10 years or something. But basically, the compass is one of the most vital things you can have as an archaeologist. Not just a CRM archaeologist, but any sort of archaeologist. Ever tried laying out an excavation unit without a compass? I mean, it's possible, but you know, if you're doing real archaeology, you would definitely lay it out like whatever direction. Alternatively, if you're on a survey and the crew chief lines you up and he goes, all right, we're walking south X degrees, or Y, you know, or east Y degrees. How do you know what direction that is? I mean, granted, you can always just like follow the person next to you, but that only works as long as you can see them. As soon as they get out of sight, you're pretty much SOL. So first thing, buy a good compass. Make sure it has declination adjustment. That's the other thing I see. I see people literally going to like Walmart and buying like a $5 compass. That's useless. Oh, and if you want to get extra brownie points, don't forget to ask, what declination? What do we set our compass declination to in this particular area? I mean, I'd probably say it differently. That sounds kind of brown nosy, but you know, you get the point. Get a good compass, treat it nicely. Like for instance, I've had this Silver Ranger. God, you probably can't even see it, the silver anymore. But I've had this Silver Ranger since field school. That was a long time ago. And yet, no bubbles. And it still works. And it still turns. You know, the declination, direction finding thingy, whatever you call this, still works. You know, it's probably not as smooth as it used to be, but it still works. Which is why I have always had a pocket for these damn things. No, this damn thing, since I've only had one. Anyway, number 1 done. Ha. One last thing I did want to add. I realized that nowadays, there are like compass apps. Like I use a compass app when I'm taking like photos, you know, to like figure out what declination. And if you've never taken photos before on a project, I mean, it might vary from state to state, but every state I've worked in requires you to record direction. And you don't necessarily need precision sighting for that. That's when I break out my phone. Sometimes. Because one thing I've found is that a lot of those compass apps require cell phone service. And I've worked in plenty of places where there is no cell phone service and the thing just like stares back at me completely blank. So don't forget your compass. A real compass. All right. Second thing I'd probably add to your field gear kit is a way to measure things. Like a real way to measure things. Not like, I'm not talking like a ruler. I'm talking a measuring tape. And don't forget to get one that's feet and, I was about to say inches, but feet and metric, which is harder to find than you think. Like, I remember when I was buying this years ago, I actually had to order it. That might still be the case. I haven't really wandered around the Home Depot lately looking for measuring tapes, but, whatever. And it always surprises me how many people don't show up with a measuring tape. I mean, in case you didn't figure it out from your undergrad classes or your classes in general or field school, one of the most basic jobs of an archaeologist is to find things, and record things. And recording requires measuring. I mean, if you take a photo of something, that's great, but, is a photo any good without a scale? If you're trying to describe something like a certain type of projectile point, and the only way you can tell it apart is from the width of the base, width of the base, or maybe the basal notch or something, where there's a very specific measurement for that particular typology. How are you going to figure that out without a measuring device? Specifically, a tape measure. I actually have fancier stuff in here, but this is a beginner video. Anyway, and I do realize that there are measuring apps. I've actually downloaded one onto the phone I'm recording on, and I plan on testing it out as soon as I get back in the field this year. But there are plenty of things that actually require, an actual measuring thingy. Like I said, like setting out excavation units, or figuring out the dimensions of a feature, or, plenty of things are going to be bigger than a phone screen size. I should probably do a video on that, because that seems really cool. I'm not gonna lie. I love these techie things. But anyway, getting back to the actual video today, on to number 3. Number 3, and I'm about to do one of the most time-honored rituals in archaeology, or at least it used to be. Setting down my backpack. And pulling out my clipboard. Yes, number 3. Have a way to fill out paperwork. I realize that these days, paper forms are becoming a thing of the past, but never underestimate the power of a CRM Archaeology company to be old-fashioned. There are plenty of companies I've worked for where they do things electronically, but I've also run into a lot of companies with a lot of old people, and they still we've been doing this since blah 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 year, whatever year they graduated with their masters or whatever. They've been doing it that way for years, and they're going to keep doing it that way until they retire, which hopefully is soonish, because I hate carrying clipboard, but I still carry one. Even if I don't necessarily keep it in my backpack, I always keep it, I always take it with me, even if I leave it in the motel room or my truck. And more importantly, even if you don't necessarily need to fill out paper forms, I was about to lose track of my thoughts, which I think I just did. But basically, always carry a lot of pencils. A lot of them. You're going to lose a lot of them. At least other people are. I've only lost 2 pencils in my entire career. This is number 3. Ha! And that's the truth, by the way. Ask anyone who's ever worked with me. But one thing you will always need is Sharpies. Whether you're labeling bags, whether you're labeling artifact bags that you took out of an excavation unit, or you're labeling flagging tape that you attach to artifacts on a site, whatever, you will always need a Sharpie, and you will always lose them. I've lost more Sharpies than pencils, but that's I haven't gone through too many. More importantly, I've never bought a Sharpie. I actually just find them. So that probably means that I've been stealing other people's Sharpies. You're welcome. But anyway, carry lots of Sharpies and pencils and a clipboard. Because, archaeology is basically just filling out paperwork. That's the way I always describe it to people. It's just like I walk around the woods and fill out a lot of paperwork. Which I think is why a lot of people get disappointed with archaeology. They just like the finding stuff part. They don't like the recording stuff part. But let's face reality. Without recording stuff, without getting stuff on record, without nominating stuff for eligibility, there really isn't a reason to have us around. Anyway, on to number 4. Just in case you couldn't figure out what number 4 is. Number 4, a watch. This particular watch, by the way, is the first thing I bought after field school. You know, to prove that I was an archaeologist. I felt so proud that I was about to be an archaeologist. I bought this watch. It used to be a lot shinier and a lot brighter. But whatever. Years go on. Anyway, you will be surprised at how handy having a way to tell time that isn't your phone is. I mean, first off, depending on what company you work for, there are plenty of crew chiefs who take exception to you whipping out a phone. In fact, I know one crew chief, no, not even one crew chief, one field director, who if he saw you whipping out your phone would send you home, or I guess to the truck, since you know, they never did any work in town here. But yeah, he had that sort of weird rule. Alternatively, do you really want to be using your phone to tell time when, you know, when you're running, it runs down battery? Ha. And thirdly, I don't know if there's a thirdly. Oh, it's also a way to figure out if you're close to lunchtime without looking like you're trying to figure out if you're close to lunchtime, even if your crew chief isn't weird about phones. They might take exception to the fact that you're watching the clock, and I always find it much easier to just do that. Just like slightly look down and figure out what time it is, rather than whipping out my phone and turning it on and then looking at it. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a watch. I've seen plenty, and I mean plenty of people wearing Fitbits and Garmin watches and Apple watches, and those obviously all show you the time, among other things. I think those are super cool. I might actually get a Fitbit one day, but for this video, I'm just wearing this, just because it's sentimental. Anyway, number 5. Or, no, let's move on to number 5. I'm going to get better at this one day. I'm also going to get better at acting. That way I can actually, like, you know, be all dramatic and have good B-roll. Anyway, on to number 5. All right, number 5. No matter how high-tech archaeology gets, there's one thing that will never change. You know, maybe one day compasses will be electronic, and more companies are using tablets instead of paper forms. But one thing that will never go away is the need for toilet paper. This is like some kind of travel toilet paper I've had like for like a million years. Usually I've got a full roll in here that I usually steal from the crew motel. Actually, I should probably keep that out. I usually carry a, like I said, I just carry a roll that I steal from the crew motel. But obviously, I emptied it out. I emptied out my pack at the end of the season, just to make sure there's nothing gross in there. But yeah, if you've ever been on a project and the closest, you know, I realize some people have like, especially if you're new, have a sensitivity to that, and they don't want to go to the bathroom in the woods. But you will get over that surprisingly quickly, especially when the closest bathroom is like an hour drive away, and it's still a 20-minute drive. It's still like a 20-minute walk back to the truck, and that's assuming your crew chief isn't going to get super pissed off at you for just leaving in the middle of the day. And you think you can hold it, but suddenly you realize, I shouldn't have had that Mexican dinner last night. Anyway, you can try and hold it, but that's kind of gross, and you probably won't be able to. So just carry toilet paper. Anyway, those are like the first 5 things I'd buy to upgrade your field kit. I assume some of you might have your own list, so if you feel like it, leave it in the comments down below. If you're interested in following me on any of my social medias or my website, all that info is in the little box below this video, unless you're watching it full screen, in which case you have to exit full screen and then look below. And yeah, that's all I've got. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully that was useful, and I will see you guys later. Oh wait, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Especially since I've noticed that almost all my views lately have been from non-subscribers. I always appreciate a subscribe. Makes me feel better about myself. Anyway, I will see you guys later.